Well, do you ever feel like you're a slave to something that's truly holding you back? Food, the wrong person, your past? Well, Laura Coppinger, blogger from Heavenly Homemakers, wrote about her own experience of wanting to obey God and be healed from her own brokenness and feel true freedom. Rach, what did you actually think of this article? Because she's essentially saying, I'm handing it over to you, God. That can be frightening.
No, I think it's more than scary because I guess as women, we're always in charge of our homes. There's so many things we need to be in control of, and it's hard to relinquish that control and say somebody else can have that control in our lives. And I think that's a challenge. It's this tension that we live with all the time.
Have you ever done it? Have you ever handed everything over to God?
I think the moment,
your walk?
Well, the moment I can think of the most clearly is probably a relationship I had before I was married. And I felt like there was a moment where God was telling me just to let it go. And I think it was just the hardest thing. And I grappled with it for a long time. I had friends who kind of walked with me through that situation until I could finally let go. So it wasn't this instant thing. I think if people would say, well, at least for me, if people would say, you know, those kind of things happen instantaneous, that wasn't my experience, you know. But I think over the course of time, I could see that that's the direction God was leading me in, and I needed to let go. So
yeah, she sort of was similar in that she really resisted and said, you know, thanks for the offer, God, but not right now. But she knew she wanted to hand everything over, and it's such a difficult thing to do. And the request, or I guess the thought that she had in her head from God was that He wanted her to pierce her nose, and this was sort of to help her in her brokenness and her own journey, and then to share that. But if I got a request like that, I'd be like, say what? Bit odd. What do you think, Mary Ellen?
Look, I think discerning the voice of God is probably like a separate issue, and I think that's sort of what the issue is here, like knowing whether that's actually God speaking to you. I don't know if I would be able to tell that. But I think in my own life, I have more experiences not surrendering to God and not, like, knowing deep down that God wants me to do something, but then on a surface level justifying my actions. And I think, well, the best example in my life is what I chose to study, because I chose to study law and psychology based on my selfish ambition and pride and wanting to achieve lots of things, when deep down I know God wants me to do something more creative, like design or writing or something like that, which He's given me a talent in. And so my life since then has played out in a very negative, not so great way. And I think if I had just made that decision and really surrendered to God and not worried about my own pride, then I would be in a much happier place now. And I can name all kinds of stories in my life where that's happened. But yeah, it just goes to show that sometimes we can't hear God's voice very clearly.
Yeah, I think what you say about discerning the voice is a really big thing, and the sort of the times where I've really felt God impress upon me are the times where my prayer life has been very strong, and it's those times where it's not, where I'm confused and sort of doubting what He's wanting me to do. The funny thing is, though, with my career and all of the jobs I've had, I've felt very clear direction, whereas with my personal life, I'm always like, I'm not so sure I'm going to let you lead on that one, and I really struggle. How do you go with it, Mel?
Yeah, it is actually a really hard thing where you're trying to figure out, is this just what you really want to do, or is this what God wants you to do?
Yeah.
Well, my thing was just with my career path and everything as well, like just wanting control and really wanting to go a certain direction, and then getting to the point. It's usually when you get to that breaking point and you're like, I really can't do this anymore.
Yeah.
Then you give up and give up control and say, God, you just got to take over.
Yeah,
everything just turns out really well after.
When I leave it with Him, it does. Maybe you've had your own experience. Jump on our Facebook page and let us know. We would love to hear it.